Social order is the trunk of our shared life. It's the structure that keeps the branches from tangling and the fruit from being trampled. It requires the constant handwork of every individual choosing kindness and connection over chaos. When we ignore the roots of our shared values, the trunk begins to rot from the inside out. It's a commitment to common ground. I'm Nick Walton. I'm a coffee roaster, I'm a dad, I'm a husband, I'm a wee farmer, and I can't stop thinking about the invisible scripts that run our lives. You're listening to The Values Sort. This is a field guide to the values that shape the patterns of thinking and behaviors that end up shaping our entire lives. This is essay number 53, Social Order. Stability of society, this card says at the bottom. Man, I feel like no matter where you land politically, there is tremendous instability in our society. On the heels of national security, the inclination is to see this as a very broad national conversation, maybe a global conversation about police and guns and the National Guard moving between communities. But I'm going to think small. Real small. I'm water insecure, which is just an insane thing for me to say out loud because it is currently raining buckets outside. I moved onto this land a couple of years ago. We have 2 sources of water on this property, which makes my statement about insecurity sound even sillier. But I'll lay it all out for you. There's a well. I was told by a neighbor that, quote, the wells round here are brackish. I didn't know what that meant, so I did what any country boy like me would do. I went out to the barn and had a long drink from the hose. Tasted fine to me, but to be honest, I have a high tolerance for weird water. That's another story. I bought one of those water testing kits on the internet. They send you some little bottles and some instructions, and you follow them just so, and you fill the bottles, and you send it all into the lab. And then they email you a report. I got mine, and there were a bunch of green line items on there, and a few yellow line items, and a couple of red line items. And I thought, that doesn't seem great, but my life is pretty wild and freewheeling, and I moved on. I figured I'd have to pay that piper at some point, but we have another source of water for our home, so I didn't pay it much heed. Well, I should have paid heed, friends. My plants did poorly. I watered a little patch of grass all summer and it didn't do well at all. And my chickens, their stool was loose and watery. Watery stool! With some trepidation, I fed my water report into AI, and it basically threw a bunch of red flags that explained all my symptoms. I switched our chickens to our other water source, and good news, folks. Firm, solid stools. I know you were worried. So basically, without giving you more detail than is necessary for this, I'm looking for a very expensive reverse osmosis system if I ever want to do much of anything with the water from the well. Not much else to do with it. Rats. The other source of water is a municipal water source from a nearby larger city. We have a meter on a small water utility. I had lived here about 6 months when my neighbor roped me onto the board of our small water utility, and so now I have access to and am privy to information that is openly and readily available to all, but which I may not have paid attention to if not for being member of the board. Our water comes to us in a single 4-inch PVC line running nearly 10 miles from its point of distribution. That line, until recently, had no isolation valves, making leak identification complex. We had 2 separate water outages in 2025, one lasting a week, and we got lucky. It could have been longer. The system was installed in the early 1980s, the same time I was installed into society. It's just in disrepair. We're doing our best with the resources we have, but honestly, we live in a fairly rural area. There's not a lot of money sloshing around here, and federal grants for this kind of thing are harder to come by than they once were. It's entirely plausible that the cost to maintain this system will, in the future, outstrip public ability or willingness to do so. And this, so far, has been all about me, about my family, about my property and my specific scenario. The reality is that our little water utility serves only about 85 households in my area, and there have to be 300 households or more who would benefit from this clean drinking water. Because remember my neighbor who told me the wells round here were brackish, he knew what he was talking about. They're pretty much all brackish. The salts come from a time many years ago when my piece of the world was covered in the sea. Salts settled and were sealed in by the thick, sticky gray clay that is so prevalent where I live, and there the sodium sat for thousands of years untouched until someone disturbed the aquifer, and now our wells are salty. So that's the situation at my home, and it makes me feel insecure. Not for tomorrow or the next day or even next year, but in the broad, uncertain future. And that makes me feel uneasy, because I remember a time before the internet. I could go back. I remember a time before the ubiquity of handheld screens. I could go back. I can even imagine a time, though I don't remember one, without electricity or speedy, efficient travel between towns and cities and counties and states. But I understand that I could go back. My family and I are adapters. We could do without a lot of things. Yours could too. But we can't do without water. We cannot do without basic foods and clean drinking water. So what do I do if in 10 or 20 years' time my source of water dries up? What do I do if we are faced with an impossible situation? A man once told me, right to my face, that if it came down to it, some terrible nightmare scenario, if society has collapsed to the point that a loaf of bread could buy a bag of gold, that he'd shoot me and my family dead before he shared. He wasn't even being threatening. He wasn't an enemy of mine, or in my estimation, a particularly hateful person. He was just a guy with a plan and an iron jaw set against the world. I worry about the order of our societies. I worry about not having enough. I worry about what I might do then. And I think there's a certain healthy wisdom in thinking about these things. Not obsessing, not making them the central focus of your life, but sitting, as I do, in my morning chair, coffee in hand, what a luxury, and staring into the middle distance. Letting ideas and thoughts wash over the various bits of my brain and allowing them to tumble about, picking up context from my life, and yes, from the values I've chosen along the way. I'll tell you what I want to do. I want to build a big-assed cistern, really big. My friend, the beautiful musician, I've mentioned him before, lives far away on a tropical island. He was born there, he moved here, he has moved back. We made fast friends in an instant one day and have just stayed that way. I have been to his home in the Caribbean to visit. It is utterly lovely in almost every way. One challenging thing about this island paradise is that there is no fresh water. Zero. Zilch. One well on the whole of the island, and it's brackish like mine. My salt is from the Eocene era, 40 million years ago. His saltiness is because the well is like 100 feet from the ocean. There is a single diesel-powered desalination plant on the island which serves the main downtown core of the small main town with piped water, and that water is also available for sale via tanker truck or barrels in the back of your rig. Other than that, and there is a lot on the island going on, other than that, all of the fresh water on the island is collected rainwater. It's really ingenious. It's a kind of elegant beauty, and it's an inspiration to me in my beloved Western Oregon, where we routinely receive a full 4 feet of rainfall every year. A tremendous amount of fresh water falling right out of the sky. My plan is, as I mentioned, when I can put funds together, to build a huge cistern and collect the rainwater from the roofs of my buildings. I have built on my piece of land a garage with modest living quarters for my parents-in-law. The structure totals about 2,000 square feet. If I were able to collect 4 feet of rain from 2,000 square feet of roof, that would total 8,000 cubic feet of water. Now, a quick burst of mental arithmetic, or a trip to Google, will tell you that that's very nearly 60,000 gallons of fresh, clean drinking water with only minimal need for further processing. That is a lot of water, friends. With some specific lifestyle choices, that, who are we kidding, I'm excited to make anyway, like a gray water system installed and mindful showering, that could be more than enough for my family to live on for the year. Plus, the hope is to add a little more roof in the future. I'll spare you the details. Plus, I have a barn. A huge piece of roof, more like 5,000 square feet. That's enough water to feed critters. It's enough water to drip irrigate crops for food. It's enough water. If I can store it. And from there, my mind wanders to the wanderer. What will I do when there are people around me with no water? How can I make choices now that put me in a better position to share later? Look, maybe none of this will come to pass. Hopefully our little water utility will find the funds and the community support it needs to upgrade and provide that water for all. Hopefully society never collapses this way and a loaf of bread will remain simply a thing to be shared. And as an aside, hopefully as a culture, we'll stop being so obsessed with bags of gold anyway. This whole end of the world scenario I play out is mostly just a mental exercise in kindness. How can I prepare for kindness to my family, to my loved ones, to my neighbors? Because I'll tell you right now, in the end, when a loaf of bread will buy a bag of gold, you will have a place at my table. We will drink water together until the end. And maybe the end will come quicker that way, but we'll be together.